Let's dial up Scott Cornell. He's transportation lead and crime and theft specialist at Travelers Insurance. He's over in Peoria, Arizona, but I think he may also be on vacation. So let's dial him up and
all right, let's see where he's vacationing.
5, count 5 good minutes.
Hey, Scott Cornell, you are on What the Truck with Dooner and the Dude. When we spoke to you a few weeks ago, you mentioned a bunch of additional key insurance and transportation coverages, but it's also our understanding you're on vacation. So thank you for taking this time out of your free time to talk with us on the show.
Oh, no, happy to be on. Thanks for having us again.
Cool, man. Well, when we ask about additional key coverage, let's get into some insurance here. Is there a catch-all for everyone, or are there specific coverage specific to different roles that companies play in the supply chain?
There's different liabilities for different roles, for sure. Whether it's freight broker, motor carriers, to warehousemen, the different liability standards can form key coverage considerations for each member of the supply chain. So this is why when we spoke last, I mentioned it's key to work with an insurance carrier that understands your role in the supply chain and specializes and really understands the key differences.
Excellent. So let's dig. Can we dig into those a little bit? What are the key cargo considerations or cargo coverage considerations for trucking specifically? Asset-based trucking.
Itself can be sure. So trucking itself can be specialized. So there's several different types of trucking: dry vans, flatbeds, and reefer, for example. Reefer haulers or dry van haulers handling food might be more concerned about change in temperature, equipment breakdown, broken seals, issues like that. Wording on coverage forms varies, and then the forms vary from company to company. So how an insurer treats these perils or exposures to a loss can really vary dramatically. Some companies may exclude certain perils. They could sublimit them. They could impose higher deductibles or even add other terms and conditions. And other companies might provide full limits for these perils and exposures. So you really have to do your homework on that.
What about from the broker's perspective? What kind of key coverage considerations should they be having?
Brokers are different too. So with respect to cargo, freight broker legal liability standards differ from those that are applied to motor carriers. Freight brokers, by their very nature, don't touch the freight. So their exposure is tied to operating procedures, contractual risk transfer, and the quality of carrier vetting practices. So as an example, we talked about my background in cargo theft. So as an example, a carrier or a broker, if they're vetting a carrier, might have a higher likelihood of hiring a thief because the thieves will pose as a legitimate trucking company. And without a solid contractual review process, and freight broker could be exposed to liabilities that are not always covered under their policy.
Understood. So I imagine with warehousing, it's a lot like you said, there's different specialized warehousing as there is in trucking. Can you enlighten us on some of that?
Again, for warehousing, there's considerations for both dry and cold storage as an example. With cold storage, much similar to what we just talked about with reefer haulers, significant concern is exposure to contamination and changes in temperature. In contrast, there might be greater concerns with dry storage over inventory shortage or shrinkage. For both cold and dry storage, the defense or litigation costs associated with a suit following a loss can be a big financial exposure. How an insurer's form responds to that exposure, in other words, do defense costs erode the limit or are they outside of the limit of insurance, should all be taken into consideration.
Wow. Well, so what services does Travelers offer to help its customers in addition to all those different types of coverage?
Again, here at Travelers, we specialize very much in transportation. The Travelers Special Investigation Group, our SIG group, would help with that carrier vetting so that a broker would not, have as much likelihood of hiring a bad guy. Our experienced dedicated claim team can help explain how our coverage would respond in comparison to a customer's contractual commitments. Having a knowledgeable claim team is important for these complex topics. And lastly, our risk control specialists add another layer of expertise. They understand the specificity and the concerns of each role within the supply chain, and they'll work with our customers to help them best manage their risk depending on the role they play in the supply chain.
Well, there's a lot to take in there. I imagine someone should go to a site like travelers.com maybe to get more information. Where should we send them after this interview?
Travelers.com for sure.
See, it's that easy.
There you go.
we mentioned multiple things. You could be calling from that 3PL perspective. You could be calling as a warehouse manager. You could be calling as a trucking company. Is there someone specific, one from each group should go to, or will that main line take them exactly where they need to be?
No, that website will give them contact information. They can always look me up on there, or even on social media, LinkedIn, contact me directly. I can put them in touch with somebody. If they go to their local agent, most likely that's the direction they go, is they go to their agent who's handling their insurance, and their agent can bring them to us.
Wow. Hey, Scott, sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having us again.